Mike, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. Maybe we could just start with the story of St James's Place, since being founded in 1991, joining the FTSE 100 in 2014. Can you just talk us through some of the key moments in that journey?
Yes, I mean, obviously, founding the company was a key moment and a nerve-wracking one. We had a vision from day one that we would go public in 5 years or get a quotation after 5 years, which I think you'd agree was fairly ambitious. Then part of our vision was that we wanted to remain independently managed. We weren't just interested in making the money, hopefully after 5 years. We wanted our partnership to be regarded as the most trusted financial advisors in the UK, and we wanted to give back to those less fortunate than ourselves. A highlight obviously was going public 5 years after our launch in 1997. Another highlight had to be getting into the FTSE last year, and we were delighted last week when we'd exceeded 50 million raised, through the foundation for those less fortunate than ourselves. So those to me were the real highlights, I suppose.
And what would you say has been the sort of key ingredient of the success of St James's Place over those years?
I'd say it was the people. I mean, companies are inclined to always say our assets are our people, and the real question is, do you treat your people as assets, or is it just a sort of bit of rhetoric that you put out? Our people really are outstanding. The partnership is unique in that we only market our products and services through the partnership, not through IFAs, etc. So we have a real control over the quality of advice given, because it's up to us who we recruit, monitor, etc. So the partnership is terribly important to us. We differentiate ourselves on the investment proposition, where we use external fund managers, not our own, and that's immensely appealing. And the culture of the company, I'd say, is a key differentiator. Most people in the company would say the culture actually was probably the main ingredient for why we've been relatively successful.
And in a period when financial markets have perhaps moved towards slightly impersonal, arm's-length transactions, how have you kept the focus on the personal relationships?
Well, we only give face-to-face advice, so we don't do any direct marketing. People can't buy our products and services through anyone other than the partnership. And relationships and trusted relationships really are everything. So other companies market different ways. To us, we stand or fall on relationships. That's the company with our own people who we want to obviously recruit and retain, very importantly. And then our partners, their relationship with their clients is absolute paramount importance. And most of their new business comes from introductions from existing clients.
And how do you try and get the most out of people?
Well, I fundamentally believe that people perform best when they feel respected, valued, cared for, and appreciated. Very simple things, but I think it's very easy to miss that these, certainly I performed best when people treated me that way. And I think one's always got to reverse roles. How would you get the most out of me? But that's the way you get the most out of me, and hopefully that's the way we get the most out of our people.
How do you go about trying to create the right culture? Because it's a very sort of intangible thing, and it often starts with maybe a statement of purpose. But how do you ensure that translates into sort of an embedded set of values through the organisation?
Well, I think the leadership has to come from the top. It's no good just saying to your HR department, we want this culture, and then someone puts out 5 or 6 bullets and says, this is our culture. You've got to have complete buy-in, and the example has to come right from the top. So, for example, from day one, we say our assets are our people, and the second item from day one for the first 5 years on every board meeting was, after the minutes, the welfare of our people. And we had to have fed in from all the departments, the offices around the country, anyone who had personal problems, whether they're financial, health problems, etc., so that we could see what we could do to help.
And in creating that, how important is it for it to some extent have a sort of purpose beyond profit, to sort of have a sort of belief in the role of business in society, helping the community? Yes, you're there to make a good financial return, but also you're there for a sort of a wider purpose.
I think it's vitally important. I mean, the interesting thing is we do a staff survey every other year, and the foundation, 20% of the people said the foundation was the biggest single factor that contributed towards our culture and why they're happy with SJP. And we just feel, sure, we're a commercial organisation, we want to make money for shareholders, ourselves, and our clients, but we also want to give something back to those far less fortunate than ourselves. So I think you create a better company, a better atmosphere in the company, and it's all part of the company culture if you give back.
And can you explain a bit more how you sort of connect the foundation across all the employees? Because in some companies they'll have a sort of donation budget and it's very much a separate entity.
Yeah.
How do you actually sort of use that to actually help build a culture?
Yeah. Well, what we did from day one when we formed the company, it was J. Rothschild Assurance then. We also formed the foundation then as well. And what we really do is we empower our people to decide what themes they want to support. After all, it's all their money.
Sometimes I find that the importance of culture in business success is sometimes a bit like Marmite. That some people really get it and they totally believe and they see the importance in it and they live and breathe it every day. And some people sort of say, well, that's rather soft and fluffy and woolly. And sort of, I suppose, what would you say to this sort of skeptics?
There's absolutely no doubt at all, even though on the induction course, when people join up, whatever role they get to play, we talk about the culture and the foundation. It would be very misleading of me to say that we get a buy-in straight away. It takes time. And people have come up to me 2 years after being with St. James's Place and say, Mike, it's taken me a bit of time, but now really I value the culture. It was very difficult to understand what it was about until I actually joined the company. So it certainly doesn't happen straight away, but every office department has a charity representative. They're always organising events, etc. Every office meeting, the charity rep speaks. And, it just does become embedded in the culture.
And maybe just looking more broadly for a second, what do you see as the sort of main challenges facing the investment industry as we stand today?
I think a big challenge is, fun enough, to build trust. The press don't help. They talk about the enormous incomes the fund managers get, etc., irrespective of their performance, or that's what the press say. So if I was a member of the public and not in the business myself, I would be fairly cynical. And then people say, well, the performance over the last 12 months of X fund's the one you ought to invest in. We all know actually 12 months performance not a great way to measure performance. The fund manager might no longer be there who got that performance, for example. And therefore, I think the members of the public are crying out for someone they actually trust and talk them through how they should look at it, their investments, and take a longer term view and have sufficient in cash so they never have to cash in the investments. When the market inevitably will be low at a certain stage, during the 5 or 10 years.
They must be easy for some people to be a bit daunted. They don't want to challenge. They want to sort of, as you say, butter you up.
Yeah.
But how do you encourage them to actually be contrarians and challenge you?
A lot of people are very nervous, or why they haven't replicated St. James's Place is they think it's horrific managing, as they see it, self-employed prima donnas. I think it's a very unfair description, but that will be the perception some people have. But the great advantage of the partnership is they're totally measured on their results. Doesn't matter their background, colour, creed, or anything. It's results that count. And providing they're ethical and doing their job properly, why should they fear making constructive criticism of the company, etc.? It's slightly different with an employee because the salary increase is going to come at the end of the year, and do they feel they're stepping out of line? I think it's easier with the partnership, which is the majority of our people, where it is just a meritocracy and they're paid on results.
Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.